All right. Thanks so much for being on this podcast. I appreciate it. My first question that I had for you is, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you started, and we can go from there.
Okay, awesome. I am Steph West. I am the founder and director of Starfish Social Club, and I help neurodivergent people strengthen their social relationships. So I do in-person social skills groups, I do Zoom social skills groups, and I have content that's available online as well, with a focus on helping kids, teens, and adults make and maintain friendships.
hmm And I saw a couple of your videos on YouTube, so they're really great. What I'm wanting to ask is, what made you start create content like this?
Oh, that's a great question. I was a special education teacher specifically for students with behavioral challenges. That's my background. I then became a behavior specialist and a school administrator. And one day I was at a training listening to people talking about running social skills groups, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. And so a couple months later, I had my business registered and I started running social skills groups. And that was 10 years ago. So I've been doing this for 10 years now. And in the process, I have also been diagnosed with ADHD. And so it kind of it's interesting because I've been in this professional world for 20 years now. And I just got my own diagnosis a few years ago. So that's been pretty interesting. So now it has a professional component and a personal component to it.
hmm and what do these social skills groups entail?
I created my own curriculum. I think most curriculums that I've ever seen in this social skills world are about trying to help neurodivergent people become more neurotypical. So it will take a skill and it will basically say, this is how you should be doing this thing. This is what this should look like. And as a neurodivergent person myself, I don't agree with that approach. I don't support that approach. I think it's much more about helping everybody understand each other better. So my approach is I've taken 32 concepts and I've broken them down based on the things that I've realized my students just don't know or don't understand about the social world. And then I break down how a neurotypical person may perceive this situation and how we may be able to think about things a little bit differently. And if we choose to, we can make some different choices in our social interactions. But the whole premise is that everybody has a choice. So I see myself as the translator. I'm translating neurodivergent socialization and neurotypical socialization and showing different perspectives, and then offering some strategies if my students choose to use them. What I typically find is when my students we practice different things in the context of the group, and when my students choose to use the strategies, they often find that it makes social interactions easier and easier to understand. And so that's really my goal is I want my students to better understand social interactions, regardless of whether they choose to do anything different or not. I want them to at least have a better understanding of what's happening and why it's happening.
hmm in that sense, so do you what sort of audience are you sort of targeting towards? Is it just like a general audience? Are you targeting more like people in schools or like people in other related demographic areas?
My program historically has been targeted towards kids and teens. Really, because that's who tends to register for it.
Hmm.
I have had adult specific groups in the past, but I struggle to have enough people interested to maintain them. So what I've done now is my in-person and my Zoom groups are for people who are up to age 21. And then I have online content, the same lessons I teach in my live groups, but it's online, and I have a youth version and an adult version. Because the reality of social skills is that it doesn't matter how old you are. What the content I teach to my 7-year-old students is just as applicable to 15-year-olds and to 40-year-olds. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you don't know this, how this social thing works, you don't know. And so I use different examples and I speak differently depending on the age of the person or the group that I'm supporting. But what I'm teaching is the same, regardless of how old somebody is. I even a couple of years ago, I had a student in my groups who was 13 and was going home and teaching the concepts to his grandfather, who was also autistic, because it's the same concepts. It's if you don't know it, you don't know it. So my target for my live groups is mostly kids and teens. And then for the online content, which again is the same content, it's just not live. There are options available for people of all ages.
Hmm. What has the feedback been like when giving these social skills groups? What have people said like when they view your content? What do they give you any sort of feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have on my website, I have a lot of testimonials and things like that so that people can see what other people have said. It's mainly from parents of kids because again, historically speaking, that's who I've been supporting as kids. But to me, the biggest feedback is students have to want to be in my program in order to attend. So I don't allow parents to register their child if their child does not want to attend, because that's not in anybody's best interest to make somebody do something that they aren't really interested in. And so, one of the biggest forms of feedback I get is that my courses run 8 weeks at a time, but students can stay as long as they want to. And so, as of right now, I have two students that have been with me since before COVID.
Wow.
So 7 years probably that they've been with me. I have students who've been with me for 3 years, 5 years, all over the place. But it's their choice. They choose to come and they choose to stay. And so to me, that's the biggest form of feedback, especially from students who maybe don't always have the ability to give feedback in the way we typically think about it. I also, in the building that I'm in now, we have a long hallway to get to our meeting place. And I
Yes.
have to remind, especially the younger kids every week, that we should be respectful of other people in the building and walk in the hallway because I
Hmm.
can hear them coming. Like they're so excited to come, I can hear them
Yeah. Hmm.
running down the hallway.
Yes. Yeah. My next question is like, what have you learned in doing this kind of work?
What have I learned in doing this?
Yeah, huh? That's correct.
Did you say in a word, one word?
What have you learned in doing this kind of work?
Oh, this work. Okay, I was gonna say I can't say anything in a word. I'm pretty long-winded.
Yeah.
I really think it's I actually don't like the term social skills because, in my mind, a skill is an isolated thing that we teach. And I don't teach things in isolation. I teach concepts and I teach awareness and I teach perspectives. So I don't like the term social skills. I use it because it's what everybody knows. And so if I were to use a different term, people might not really know what I'm talking about. So that's one thing I've really learned is moving away from the concept of this being a neurodivergent deficit and this being a skill set towards this being something where everybody ideally can understand each other better. And it's not skills, it's perspectives and ideas and concepts. It's being able to see something from a different perspective and figuring out if you want to try to change what you're saying or what you're doing to match that perspective. So I think I really try to shift the conversation around traditional social skills away from it being a neurodivergent deficit and towards it being just a communication mismatch often between people whose brains function differently.
Mm-hmm. And what benefit does having these sorts of groups that you're doing, what benefit does it have on like children's sort of development and sort of ability to sort of um progress more to becoming more uh communicative? Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that I base my program around is that there are three kind of standard, I'll say, personality types that I support in my groups. And nothing's black and white. These are just three kind of in general. And I wrote a book kind of centered around this. One personality type is students, people, adults who are friendly. People like them. People know them. In a school system, most of the kids know their name. They'll say hello to them. In an adult situation, if they're employed, people like them. People enjoy being around them, but they don't understand how to engage and interact with other people. And so they're typically on the fringes. They might be listening to conversations, but not participating. And so typically what happens is they're not being invited to things, they're not part of conversations, they're not going out to lunch with everybody else, but not because people don't like them, but because they don't know how to be part of the socialization that's happening. So that's my focus with that group is teaching them how to integrate into social situations. The second group are kids, teens, adults who often try too hard to be part of things and end up, unfortunately, getting a reputation for being annoying or being too much, being dramatic, when really all they're trying to do is to be part of something. They're trying to be part of those conversations, they're trying to be part of that group, but they don't know how to do that in a way that's successful. And so they keep trying and they keep trying, but they're trying things that aren't working and they're continuing to do things that aren't working. And then the third group are people who are socially anxious. And so they want to be part of things, but they're consumed with anxiety over what other people will think about them and how other people will feel about them. And so they tend to withdraw and isolate, even though they genuinely, most of the time, want to be part of social situations. That anybody who's experienced anxiety knows how consuming that can be. So, for each one of these personality types, one of the things that they get from the group or the online program is knowledge. They get my support in helping them understand how they might approach things a bit differently than how they are now. So, how can you join that conversation? How can you share your thoughts with another person? How can you let somebody know you're romantically interested in them? How can you, share your opinion without getting a reputation for being rude, right? How can we do these things? Another thing they get, especially people who are in the group, is the community that comes along with being part of a group. My program is for neurodivergent people. And so everybody who's in my program, we're all there learning together. We're all there working on similar things. And so there's this beautiful community that forms because we're all working on this together. There isn't anybody who's the model neurotypical student, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't anybody who's there to kind of show the way. All the students are learning and working together, and so it builds this beautiful community. And then the third thing is that, especially for students who attend a live group, we're practicing, we're role playing, we're having conversations, we're having discussions. And so it builds a sense of emotional safety and security. You can talk about anything here, you can practice anything here because, again, we're all doing it together. And so in the groups are where we get to try things out and we get to ask questions and we get to talk about things that we've experienced in an emotionally safe environment. And we get to get feedback from other people who are in the group.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of things that come out of being in the program and being in the group. No matter again, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, exactly. So like my last question is how can content like this, the work that you're doing, how can that sort of help others, who are like kind of in those situations who are kind of like on the fringes or on the outside or for people who want to create more content like this and sort of talk about a more, what you're doing, because from what I understand, your content you're trying to create content that is easily digestible and understandable for people to understand because oftentimes terms and concepts are so complex to a average human being. So that's pretty good. So like, how can this content work towards that goal, I guess?
Yeah, I because my background is in teaching, I really try to bring that into every concept that I'm talking about and I break things down into steps along the way. So for example, when I think about what my groups learned last week, the week before we're recording this, we talked about how to join a conversation that's already happening. So if you come across a conversation and you want to join that conversation, let's talk about how we can do that. But I broke that concept down into 5 lessons. And one lesson was, why are we joining that conversation? Often people try to join a conversation based on who is in that conversation, but really we should be thinking about what's the topic of that conversation. Because if we join a conversation just because the people we know are in it, they could be talking about something we don't even care about.
Mm-hmm.
So, lesson number one is why. Think about why you want to join this conversation. And it's generally because it's something we know about. And so we can tell we have it in common with the people in the conversation, or it's something we're interested in, even if we don't know that much about it. So that's the first lesson is why do we want to join conversations? Next, we talk about what are some things to try to avoid when we join a conversation. So, for example, we don't join a conversation if we have nothing to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't join a conversation to correct the people who are having the conversation and let them know that actually that's not correct. So there's several different things we want to try to avoid. Then we talk about how to actually join the conversation. We talk about what happens if you try and it doesn't work, which happens to everybody, neurotypical, neurodivergent, it happens to everybody. So I try to take every concept and break it down into usually 5 lessons about just one concept. Because again, this if it was easy, we would all be doing it already. We would all be successfully social if it was easy. And so my goal is to break it down into pieces so that I can best explain each component of it. This is why this is this way. This is how other people perceive this thing. So that's my goal is to break one concept down as much as possible. So each concept is usually in my live groups, it's about an hour. And so it includes me explaining the different components of it. It includes group discussion about it. It includes practice. But it's about an hour for just one concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Um, yeah. I guess to wrap this up, how can how can this type of work that you're doing make a difference in people's lives? Raise
My
awareness.
goal is for what I do to be able to benefit a variety of people, not just the students in my program. Obviously, the students in my program are the number one beneficiaries of the program. They are gaining social knowledge, they're gaining experience, they're gaining social confidence, they are gaining all the things that they come into the program for. But I also want, if they're youth, I want their parents to be benefiting from the program. I want the parents to understand where their social challenges are coming from so the parents can support them as well. The same with the adult program that I have now, the adult version. There's it's your spouse, your boss, your kids. There, I want anybody who is in any kind of relationship with someone who struggles socially to have a better understanding of why this person is struggling socially and how we can support them. And so that's really what I'm trying to accomplish with the program is obviously priority number one is the students who are in the program, but also just anybody who has any sort of relationship with them. It should be a two-way street, right? If it should
Hmm.
be everybody should be developing a better understanding and perspective of each other, as opposed to those of us who are neurodivergent better figuring out the neurotypical world. Everybody should be better understanding each other. And so that's what I try to promote as well is kind of the thought process that we have, along with the thought process that most neurotypical people have when it comes to different social situations.
All right. Okie dokie.